All right, Ben, thanks for joining us. And I know it's a huge honor for you recently, being honored as one of the SEC legends this year for the Auburn Tigers, and you'll be in Atlanta in December. And I know that's got to make you feel good.
Doug, it really does. It was a great surprise when Auburn called and notified me of this great honor. And I got to looking at the different players that are on this class or that are in this class. And of course, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning. That's going to be a lot of fun to be around those two guys. Ozzie Newsome, a couple of centers in the group. So I'm overwhelmed with pride. It's just a great it's a responsibility, but it's also a great honor to represent Auburn wherever I can and whenever I can. So being placed in that group as an SEC legend is one of the greatest honors I've ever received.
Mm-hmm. And just reading the article that Auburn wrote about you, going back to your decision days when you were in Birmingham playing high school football, it wasn't always Auburn, was it?
No, ironically, the first college football game I ever went to was September 9th, which is my birthday. I think it was 71, and Alabama played Duke at Legion Field. And I was born and raised in Birmingham, Alabama, as a Alabama Bear Bryant fan. And the interesting part of it is how that came into play. That when I finally had the opportunity to what I felt was a dream to go play at Alabama, and for Coach Bryant, things were changing. The canvas was changing, and Coach Bryant's health, and how long he would be at Alabama if I were to go there. So all of it came together for me personally because Coach Dye was very much like Coach Bryant, same mold, I would say. He coached under Bryant for 10 years at Alabama. So it was a natural for me to go to Auburn because of Coach Dye and to see what he had, what he was building, and the promise of the program. I felt like I knew he would be there for 4 years, and I wasn't sure Coach Bryant would be there.
And you spent a couple of days with Coach Dye, I think, when you were making your decision there. What do you remember about that? Anything specific?
Well, it was unique in that because I was at a prep school and I was going to sign early so that I could report to the school I chose in January. I needed to get all my visits finished really before Thanksgiving, around Thanksgiving, the last games of the year. So I took my Auburn visit during the week of the Iron Bowl, and I was there like on a Tuesday, Wednesday, 2 days during practice. Really, not really during the Saturday of the pageantry of the game and all this. I was there while the guys were practicing. And I remember they practiced at Jordan Hare on Pat Dye Field, soon to be Pat Dye Field. But I would stand next to Coach Dye, and we would go look at different positions practicing in offensive line, and he'd point out the players like Steve Wallace, who was a freshman, Randy Stokes, the guys that he had recruited who were making contributions right now and would play Saturday. Then you go over to the defensive line, Donnie Humphrey, Ben Thomas, Doug Smith, Dow Altman, just kept going. And it seemed like all these guys were coming back. They had done already what they had accomplished in the season. And it just seemed like a place that was about to explode. And I took that with me. My visit to LSU was Friday and Saturday, and LSU was playing Tulane. That year, LSU went to the Orange Bowl, played Nebraska. Tulane beat them at the visit I went to. But I can remember trying to find out the Alabama-Auburn score, and in my heart, I was pulling for Auburn, and that was a difference maker. That time with Coach Dye, that week.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you from your comments there about going to Auburn, playing center in your first season, starting at center for the Auburn Tigers. How hard is that to do? It makes me think of this season and some of the questions I've asked the offensive coaches. But how hard was that to do back then?
Starting as a freshman is difficult. I was fortunate, like I'd said previously, that I was able to go ahead and enroll and go through a winter quarter and a spring. Mm-hmm. So I got a little bit of a jump start on my class who reported in the fall of that or the summer of that season of 1983. It's still difficult because you until you go out there and play in front of all the people in the SEC, and you face the kind of talent that you do face when you're playing at Auburn. It takes a few reps to get used to that, and I'm sure that when I began my career at Auburn, I had confidence in my ability, but a lot of growing was needed, to get to the point where the player that I hopefully later became. But it was a great privilege for me. And I think at that time, that's one of the reasons I went to Auburn, is because I felt like I could make an impact early. And that drove part of my decision as well. So it was a great experience. Obviously, it was a big learning experience and a humbling experience, because the very first game I ever played, we played against Southern Miss, and they had a third team All-American that was really good, and he was a senior. So it was humbling that next Sunday watching the film.
Obviously, you guys made quite an impact, though, winning the championship in '83 and going to the Sugar Bowl. What was that like in your first year at Auburn to do that and to go to the Sugar Bowl and beat Michigan?
That season was amazing, because in the end, I guess we played 10, 11 bowl teams. Every game was one of those games that you had to play your best to win, and even homecoming was Maryland. They had Boomer Esiason, and obviously we lost one early in the year. Texas beat us 20-7, and they really beat us. It was at Auburn, but I think that probably had a lot to do with the way we finished our season, because it was an attitude adjustment. You couldn't just roll the ball out there and win. And I think after that game, we took each game one at a time. You hear the phrase 1-0, and I believe that's the way Coach Dye approached it, and that went to the players, that attitude of just game by game. And before you know it, you turn around, and you're 10-1. You just beat Alabama. You're going to the Sugar Bowl to play Michigan and compete for a national championship. And that was one of the really cool things about Coach Dye that I learned. At the first of every season, he would set all the players down, and you would write your personal and your team goals down, and then you'd share them with your teammates and the coaches. And you better have on those team goals beat Alabama, and then win an SEC championship was 2, and compete for a national championship, because you couldn't really win it like you can now. There wasn't a playoff. It was a mythical national championship. So I think ultimately the goal was to have the season where you beat Bama, you win the SEC, and you're in place to play for a national championship. And that's what we did. And just like I said before, ultimately you don't have control over it. Although I think we were probably the best team in the country with the toughest schedule, we didn't win it. We ended up third. So that was a really great experience. And as a freshman, you think, hey, we didn't get it, but we'll get it next year. And we never got close. I mean, my sophomore year was disappointing. My junior year, I think we won 8 games both years. And then finally my senior year, we won 10, but we weren't in the running. So it was that almost had it, and but it slipped away.
Yeah. I can remember that morning well in New Orleans, waking up and whatever we did, watch TV or read the paper or whatever. And we're like, what? And I've asked several guys this, and I think I know the answer. But when you guys left the locker room that night after the Sugar Bowl, you thought you had won the national championship, right?
I really did, because one obviously was beat by Nebraska. I mean, Nebraska was beat by Miami. Number 2, Texas was beat by Georgia. And then we were 3, and we won. And in most years, you just kind of bump up.
Right.
Unfortunately, that year, Miami leaked from either 4 or 5 to 1.
Yeah.
Nebraska fell to 2. We stayed at 3. And I don't think the weight of a schedule like it does today had as much on in people's minds after the schedule that we played. Just the gauntlet SEC schedule, and the fact that we played Texas outside the conference, and a Maryland team like I said during homecoming. It was amazing to go 10-1, and I don't think that we received the credit we deserved for that season.
Yeah, no question about it. But your first season was that the highlight of your Auburn career, or what sticks out to you? One or two moments?
No, my senior year was the highlight, because I can remember after the Cotton Bowl in '85, we got beat by Texas A&M, and we had a great team, a lot of seniors that went on to play professional football, and but after that game, Coach Dye basically was talking to next year's team, and he said things are about to change. And that off season, that winter workout, we went into the bubble 3 times a week at 5 a.m. Every assistant coach was there. We had stations, and the assistant coaches would oversee a station, and you would have a captain of each segment. And if there were loafs, you'd go back and it was tough.
Mm.
And then spring was a very physical contact spring. And we weren't really slated to do that great that season. We had lost a lot of people. And the expectation was not that great. However, we went 10-2. We went to the Citrus Bowl, beat USC, and really, aside from Georgia that year, we had Florida 17-0 in the fourth quarter. Had we won that game, we'd have gone the Sugar Bowl.
Mm.
But it was a year of we did better than expected, and I think, because it was my senior year, that'll always be the best memory I have is that we did the most we could with what we had.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it set the stage for the next few years. I mean, the next 3 years, Coach Dye and Auburn won the SEC,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a dominant period.
Yeah.
I think it all sprang from a foundation where things changed, and that was 1980. That was the 1986 season.
Mm-hmm. How long do you think Coach Dye would have coached if things would have worked out a little bit differently there?
It's unknown. Obviously, I think he would have coached, and as long as his health allowed him to do so. I think he'd have coached as long as he could. It's almost hard to describe the type of coach that he was, how much he loved it, how his relationship with his players. I always think about how he had such a good pulse on the team. When we had worked really hard, he knew when to back off. When you needed a lesson, like I was saying earlier about Texas and getting beat like that, he was always so good about attitude adjustments and working, and most of all, the confident air that he had, and that kind of transcended into the team. When you walked behind him on that field, you really kind of felt like, those guys can't beat us, because of Pat Dye, the way he's prepared us, the way he's talked to us, the lessons that we've learned, being around him during the week in practice, being around him before pregame and after. He was just a born coach, and I really do believe he probably would coach another 10 years if his health would allow him to do so.
Let's talk about Auburn now a little bit. Of course, interesting times and a lot of talk in the media about what's going on at Auburn and how things are working. What's your take on where we are right now?
I always think about the players and the seniors. I just told you that my most favorable memory was my senior year and how important it was to me. A lot of guys that maybe want to go play pro or just finishing off a career. And it's unfortunate for those guys as players. I don't know that, obviously speculation of Coach Harsin not being around next week or this, after the season. We don't know when, but it's premature right now. And I know those players have bought into his style, his culture. They're doing the best that they can. And I don't know what the best thing for the players is. It seems to be a tough situation, a tough choice to make. If Coach Harsin truly is not going to be the coach at Auburn, next week or after this season, the timing is just not. The timing's never good.
Mm.
And who's the next guy? There's great names out there, but that have a lot of ability, a lot of accomplishments that would be good fits with Auburn. But who is the guy? It's going to be a tough choice, and to add to that, without an athletic director, a full-time athletic director, the timing of it is very, we're in a tough spot.
Mhm.
So I just, I would say that patience for the players first and foremost, and honoring what they're doing. And I know they're trying to win. I hate the situation the way it is. Obviously, um, the season has not gone the way that we expect it to, or the way that we want it to. There's got to be some changes. What those will be and when they will be, I don't know.
Mhm.
But Auburn will come back, and we've been in this situation before, and we've come back strong from it.
Obviously, there's been a lot of back and forth on the 24/7 media now, but coaching, execution, what do you see when you watch Auburn and Georgia last weekend?
To me, it's got to be a little of both, obviously, because I think execution is first and foremost, especially when you're facing a team like Georgia and the talent that they have. You can't make mistakes. You can't have turnovers. You can't have penalties. And all year long, we've had both. Um, those are fundamentals. I can remember Coach Dye, whenever we'd lose a game, one of the things that we would do, we'd go back to the basics, and it might be doing drills like the center quarterback snap for 30 minutes. It might be carrying a football around all the time for running backs or receivers. I mean, simple things that make a difference, turnovers, penalties. Those are key in playing in the SEC, especially with talent that's is superior as what Georgia is. You cannot make those mistakes. We've been hurt by injuries, obviously, our quarterback situation. Um, our center situation. I think we're on the third center. We've had to move around guys on the offensive line that may not be as comfortable at one position as they are at the other. So it's been a triple. It's been a perfect storm, so to speak. But I always go back to what Coach Dye did, and I think simplify things, don't make mistakes, man on man, and just see if you can beat them. Not necessarily trying to outwit or do gadgets and things just to get ahead. I think just go back to basic football, build some strength and character, and that's what he would have done.
Mhm.
That's what Coach Dye would have done.
And it's a different environment now with recruiting and the transfer portal. But I tell everybody, Auburn's in a hole right now as far as talent. We got Georgia on one side and Alabama on the other side, and we're a little bit down right now. But with the transfer portal, maybe a new guy at the top, things could turn around pretty fast. Do you think, or what?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's our one of our saving graces. I believe that I think we lost 19 players during the offseason to the portal, and our class, was not ranked as it normally is, maybe a top 15, top 20 class. So the talent, we've got to go out and get people that can make an immediate impact, and that's the portal. That's where you go get it right now. And Auburn's going to be a great opportunity for a lot of players out there that decide they want to go make a change. And I think if we talked about earlier, if we have a new head coach, I think one of the primary skills that we need to look for is somebody that can get out there and find talent immediately, sign those guys, and get them in our system as soon as possible.